One of the most frequent concerns for small group communication is how to create a team or a group that can come up with creative or innovative solutions to particular problems. If you can catalyze a creative and innovative conversation in a group, that group will be able to use all of its resources to come up with a new solution to a problem that they hadn't thought of before. Traditionally, for around the last 50 or 60 years, groups have been using a process of kind of free association that we call brainstorming. And brainstorming is when you sit around together and just say whatever comes to your head without any judgment or any kind of filter. It turns out that brainstorming is actually not very good at generating creative or innovative solutions to problems. We've got a good bit of research in sociology and in communication studies at this point that shows that brainstorming doesn't help all that much. It's unclear if there's any advantage whatsoever to brainstorming over individuals sitting by themselves and just coming up with solutions to a problem on their own. So the challenge for small group communication is to say, okay, if brainstorming doesn't really work, how can I catalyze a kind of group process or group communication process that will work to generate creative or innovative solutions? Well, there's two things I need to keep in mind if I'm going to build a creative or innovative group. Well, first is heterogeneity. The second is what's called creative abrasion. Heterogeneity is about the diversity of perspectives and the diversity of kinds of knowledge involved in the process. It's how you set up the group and who you allow in and out of any group process that will help aid its creativity. So groups with higher degrees of heterogeneity groups with higher degrees of heterogeneity are better able to come up with creative or innovative solutions. So if you're a leader of such a group, your first practice is to organize a group that has a higher degree of diversity, essentially. And by diversity, I don't necessarily just mean culture or race or ethnicity or anything like that. I mean diversity of kinds of knowledge, diversity of perspective, diversity of experience, diversity across a range of different factors. Now, if you're able to get a diverse group, if you're able to set one up, the second thing that you want to have is what's called creative abrasion. And this is more the communication practice than the first one is. The first one is just sort of creating a communication structure. The second one is the actual practice. Creative abrasion refers to the way in which that diversity or that heterogeneity rubs against one another and the way in which the differences between diverse constituencies rub against one another so that there's some degree of disagreement or discord in the group process. We know as communication scholars that you need a degree of discord or abrasion or disagreement or difference because that disagreement or difference can spark innovative or creative solutions. So one of the things a group leader needs to do is figure out a way to facilitate that process of abrasion, facilitate a degree of creative abrasion. There's a couple of standard communication practices for doing that. One's called the devil's advocate. It involves, in any group process, the group leader would appoint some person to the role of devil's advocate, and their job would be to disagree with or critique anything anyone else in the group had to say. I sit in these large meetings here at the University of Waterloo with 30 or 35 or so people, and the meetings often, there's a lot of voting and there's proposals get made and we vote on the proposals, and oftentimes a proposal is made and everybody, all 35 people raise their hand and say yes. That's a problem. I know going in that that group is not going to be a creative or innovative group. Maybe it's not designed to me, maybe the University of Waterloo doesn't want that group to be creative or innovative, but there's no abrasion because the way I know there's no abrasion is that we all consent to the proposition right away. All of us raise our hands. The devil's advocate is meant to dislodge that process. It's meant to critique or upend or create disagreements. There's other ways you can do it as a group leader. You can, if you don't want to assign roles, if you've got a heterogeneous or diverse group, you can try and pit people against one another by asking questions that are intentionally incendiary or difficult. So you can say it sounds like person X is disagreeing with person Y, and you can highlight that difference. Sometimes highlighting that difference is enough to spark some level of abrasion. In any case, you're looking for specific communication practices that will create abrasion. But you don't want that abrasion to risk what's called relational harmony. You don't want people to end up hating each other. You just want them to disagree enough so that the abrasion kind of sparks innovative solutions. So a good group communicator is able to spark that abrasion, yet maintain relational harmony at the same time. So when people are disagreeing, you're getting them to disagree about the topic of conversation and not getting them to hate one another, essentially. So you want communication practices that preserve relational harmony while facilitating abrasion.